Have you gotten caught up in the vibe coding craze like I have? If so, you've been playing with tools like Bolt and Replit and Firebase. I just did 3 videos on the channel here on Firebase and building apps with it. And they're all cool. And there's new ones coming online every day. We could have a whole channel just talking about all the new vibe coding apps and code editing apps that are out there, all powered by AI. But sometimes I wonder, am I actually building something or am I just playing with cool toys? And if you've been asking yourself that same question, today's video is for you because we're going to go through and build an app, real app, including things like integrating it via a webhook to a back end AI agent to produce things that then come back to our app and get used like they would in a real world scenario. And we're also going to talk a little bit about getting production ready because this is fun to build. But what if we want to sell it to somebody? How are we going to build it and maintain it and so forth? If things like this are interesting to you, make sure you like and subscribe below and check out some of our other videos on vibe coding, building your own agency, and really leveraging AI in a way that not only can help you make money, but serve a purpose. All right. So what do we need to get started? We're just going to use a few things today. I'm not going to show you how to set these up. We'll do some other videos on that, including the AI agent. There's a little bit more to that using N8N. But for today, just hooking the pieces together and vibe coding the app itself. So some of the things we're going to need is Bolt, which I have up here. You don't need Bolt. You can use anything you want. As a matter of fact, I don't use Bolt. I use Replit as far as the cloud-based online options for the most part. And then really a lot of what I use Visual Studio Code, and we'll do videos on that. But Visual Studio Code with a couple of different code enhancers. Right now, Augmented is my favorite. I'm not going to go through all those because it's a little more technical. And this one, we can just get started at the beginning. Since I don't use Bolt and I've never done anything like this on Bolt, hopefully it goes really well. It could just be a train wreck. And I hope you enjoy watching that too. But outside of the coding app, some of the other things we're going to use, I'm going to use Gemini. I know this is crazy to think about this, but I am not just going to vibe code a couple words in there. I'm going to think through a couple things, and I'm going to let Gemini help me think through that and write some prompts. No use having to think if something else could do it for me. I'm also going to use something crazy called Google Docs. And in Google Docs, I'm just going to keep my information, my prompts, and so on and so forth located there. And lastly, as I mentioned, I'm going to use N8N. N8N is a tool that is a workflow automation tool. It existed before AI existed, but now it's really ramped up with AI. It allows you to do all kinds of automations, integrating all kinds of things, including your coding apps into here, and then sending them out to all kinds of places too. We're going to make it very quick and easy today because we're just going to sort of build an agent. It's going to do some things and it's going to send that data back to our app in Bolt. But if you'd like to learn more about N8N, make sure you check out on the channel and all kinds of places on YouTube with tons and tons of information about automating with N8N. So when I do these videos, the first question I get is, how do you decide how to build the app? And vibe coding by definition is sort of typing in just a quick one sentence thing. I don't do it quite that way. I try to get a little more information. And so today we're going to start with the idea, build it out just a little bit offline, and then bring it back into the coding app from there. And so for the video, I was trying to think of what's the simplest thing I can do that needs a coding app and then also needs something on the back end or can leverage something on the back end like an N8N and produce something of meaning. And what I chose is to build an app today. Very, 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 very simple. I'm going to give it a topic, and then it is going to provide back to me a tweet that I can post on that topic. We're going to make it that simple. Can I make it much more in depth and say things like, I'm going to create Instagram reels and I'm going to HeyGen and getting my video and bringing back a fully scripted video that I can post as a reel on Instagram, and then also LinkedIn articles and LinkedIn posts and Facebook posts and so on. So yeah, we can build that from there, but we'd be there for about 6 hours doing that. For today, we just want to build the minimum piece and a tweet is just a short piece of text, which makes life easy on us. So I mentioned I like to use Google Docs. I just keep track of most of my things there, prompts and things like that. Yeah, they get cataloged on the tool I'm using, but I use like 8 different LLMs, and I find that I forget where I put them. So I just put all the information in Google Docs, and then I can find it later if I need to use it again. So here I have a prompt that I've written. Sorry. I've written a description of what I want a prompt to be. And then we're going to get a little bit of help with that from Gemini. So you see here, I write a prompt that I can use in Bolt to create the web app where a user puts in a topic, and then Bolt sends the info via a webhook. You don't have to worry about what webhook is right now. We can look at that in a minute, to N8N, where the agent processes it and it creates a tweet. Then N8N sends the response back to Bolt with the tweet. So that's the beginning. Now I'm going to take that there. That's just my initial information, and I'm going to let Gemini be smart for me, and I'm going to ask it to then generate the prompt for me. And I'm using 2.5 Pro, which does a lot of thinking, and you can see here if we open it up, you can see all the thinking. It's pretty nice. Because it does a lot of thinking, it does add a decent amount of information in here. Not crazy, but it's a lot more than create a app for me that allows me to write tweets. And to me, I know that vibe coding can be iterating and putting something simple and then just going from there. That is an awesome, awesome way to use up your credits for your services on your vibe coding apps. But if you want to cut out a whole bunch of iterations that they are charging you for, I recommend you go this route. Does it make it perfect? No. Do we end up down all different roads sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. But at least it gives me a start. And you'll see it provided back to me was the details about the app. It gave it a name up there for the title. And then it tells it what it needs to do, the functionality. And just as importantly, even though we're not going to have it in there right from the beginning, some considerations. And this means that Bolt can at least start from scratch, writing out its code base to include information, some placeholders for what we need to add in later so that we don't have to go and add it in at another point in time. So I'm going to just grab all that information from number 4 down here on up to the create an app, because that's what we wanted to do. I'm just going to copy that, head on over to Bolt, and where asking how can I help you today, I'm going to paste that in there. And Bolt is going to start doing its thing here. As you see on the right, if you haven't used Bolt or any of these apps before, what it does is it starts to build out the whole application for you. So through the magic of video, boom, we've got the app. I was actually going to explain to you exactly how Bolt puts the pieces together, the structure, I think it's a TypeScript app and things like that. It went so fast for this simple app that I didn't get a chance, and it finished and rendered what you see here on the screen before I even got clicked over there. So we're going to do that after the fact. So this is as you can see, the preview of the app that we have. It also, that's my prompt up here, over here on the side. It shows us what it's doing and why it did it. And then it also tells us what we need to do from here, which is replace your webhook URL with the actual URL for the webhook we are going to create in a moment over on N8N. And then also in the JSON, which is really cool. It knows that N8N uses JSON. So it's telling us put this in the JSON, and we'll hook that on the N8N side in a minute too. But we've got almost fully functioning app that's going to call out. We are going to move on to the next step, which is figuring out how to make it work so that when we hit generate tweet, it actually gives us something. Before we go to N8N, we want to write special instructions for our AI agent in N8N to ingest that topic that we're sending from Bolt and then send it back. So what I've done is I've come back to Google Drive here, and I've written up a quick description of what I want to do, that I just told it again what we're doing about the agent and Bolt and the webhook. And I did mention in here too, because Bolt is nice enough to tell us that we're going to send the webhook to N8N with this JSON of topic and then the user input. And then we're going to send it back with tweet and the generated tweet. So our topic goes here, and it'll come back to the tweet here, and the JSON just makes it so we know what in the world that data is that's coming back and forth between the two, so it can parse it out and figure it out. Don't need to know that, but that's what we've got there. And I just wanted to make sure that it puts it in the instructions so that I've got it there. We're just doing a placeholder. I'll show you in a minute how to replace that and N8N. But let's just grab that and head on back over to Gemini here. Again, if you want to do all the thinking yourself, you can, but I wanted to show you that you can do it with an LLM or with an LLM and tweak it yourself, but you can either way, you don't have to go the road all by yourself. So it's going to think here for a minute and bring us the AI instructions back. And after a little bit of thinking, it brings it back. You'll see here we have our instructions that we're going to use. It tells us what the role is, that I'm an expert social media copywriter. We're going to go through what the task is, that I'm getting a tweet, and there's the JSON placeholder that's in there. All the information about the tweet. We said be scroll stopping, well thought out, so on and so forth. So you see here where we're going a little bit further than saying, write me an app that creates viral tweets and putting that into Bolt. We're actually going a little further. And in N8N, we're going to put this in here. Well, if we want to later, this is the magic of it, change that up. It's very easy. Don't need to reprogram anything. Don't need to find it in the code. We just go to a window and change what we need to do on the screen. And then also, you notice it mentions the AI nodes here. We'll see this in a second. And then again, we can choose which AI we want to use to generate our tweets. And we can use different models depending on which AI it is. And maybe one works better today, another one works better tomorrow. Who knows? Things only change every 25 minutes. So why would you ever want to change what you're using? That was sarcasm, but it allows us to do all that. So now we've got the prompt, we've got some information. It gave us an example. By the way, if you're ever trying to learn how to do prompting, just pasting in some things and say, give me a good prompt back here in Gemini Pro 2.5, I would say, or 2.5 Pro, I would say is an awesome way to learn the basics of prompting because it does a great job of giving you examples. We're in N8N now. And as I mentioned, N8N is an automation workflow tool. You don't need to have AI as a part of it. You can just use it as an automation workflow tool, but you can use a lot of different integrations and make a lot of different processes and send information back and forth and have other things process information, send it back, send it to other places. It's a very powerful tool. We're going to use a very simple version of it today, but feel free to check it out. No advertisement for it. Don't think I have an affiliate link. If I do, down below, then I'm getting paid for the affiliate link. If there's no affiliate link, I'm not getting paid for it. If you remember when we started, we told Bolt, what did we tell Bolt that we were going to do? We said, way back up here, that we are going to use a webhook to N8N. So the very first piece of the process we're going to do is create a webhook. Sounds fancy. I'm just going to hit the plus. I'm going to go up in the search and type in webhook, and I'm going to get a webhook. I'm going to break this down pretty quickly because we don't need to go into the details. But what the webhook does is over on our app, it takes information, sticks it in a URL at the end of the URL, pushes it somewhere. So it is going to take this URL, and at the end of it, it's going to add that topic that we asked it to generate. And it's going to put that at the end of the URL and send it over here. And then through the magic of N8N, it's going to process it and allow us to use it. When we're testing, we use a test URL. What we're going to do is we're just going to come in here. We're going to create this. And now we've got that URL that Bolt had told us before. Hey, once you get that URL, come back to me. I'll help you set it up. Just click in the box. Down here, you'll see it copied that URL for us. And then we come back over to Bolt and we just tell Bolt that we want to add it in. And Bolt said if you need any help integrating it, so I'm just going to tell it here's that webhook, and I paste in what we just copied from the test URL, and it's going to go in here and update it. And you can see over on the right here, what it did is it came over to this section here and took that URL that we just copied and pasted and stuck it in here. If we didn't want to do that, we could have found our way to the application itself and gone in there and just copied and pasted it ourselves. So once we've got our webhook set up in Bolt, now we can go back to N8N and test it out. In N8N, you'll see here we have our webhook. I'm going to add one little piece to the end of this, which is, and I've put it on here already. It starts off as saying respond immediately. We're going to say respond to the webhook node, because when we get done with the agent, it's going to create the tweet, and then this respond to webhook node is going to send the data back to Bolt for us. I'm only doing it just so we don't have an error on the back end. It won't really matter, but it'll just sit there and do nothing on Bolt instead of put a red error that said, I didn't find any content. I know that doesn't matter, but I don't like red errors. And we need this on the back end anyways. And the plus here, we're going to come in here, we'll do webhook again, and you'll see at the bottom we have respond to webhook. We don't have to do anything there. It just says first incoming item automatically, and that's all we need. And so that's all we need to test this out. To get it started, we need to be listening for that webhook in N8N. And so we can hit the test the workflow, and now it says waiting for your URL call. And we'll come back over here to Bolt. We've got a topic we put in. Vibe coding takes over the world appropriate enough. And I'm going to do generate tweet. And you'll see what happens. It did something, and it stopped, and it came back, and it just said the tweet will appear here. On the back end, though, it actually did something in N8N. And you'll see these little green check boxes. That means it did something. You can also come up to execution and see what it executed and click on that. And you'll see that it did these things. And come back to the editor. If I double click on the webhook, what you can see on the right here is a whole bunch of information we don't care about. But down in that topic that it said it was going to send over, it sent over the topic that we typed into Bolt. Magic, right? Pretty cool. And so that gets us the information we need. Now on the back end of it, you'll see here, it just responded back with the same thing. Does us no good because there was no content in there yet. So that's our next step, is to create the AI agent that's actually going to build out the automation that writes the tweets for us. I'm going to do a plus sign here, and I'm going to ask it for an AI agent, which you'll see here. And we're going to go through this real quick. So our AI agent, first things first. So let's talk about the pieces of the AI agent real quick. You can do a lot of different things with them. We're going to do something very simple today, but just wanted to give you a flavor. And what we have here are 3 different areas. One is the chat model. So think about your OpenAI, your Claude, your Gemini, DeepSeek, whatever it is. That would be the chat model here. It's going to be the brains that are running the operation. And then we have memory, and that's just keeping, like it says, memory. So that you can, if I were to add memory to this and do a chat and say, hi, my name is Judson, it says, hi, Judson. And then if I ask the question, what's my name? It looks in its memory and it says, your name is Judson. So that's all the memory does. It keeps track of those things. And then the tools, and this can get down a big, deep hole, but there's all kinds of tools, as you can see in here, that we can send information out to, get information from inside this agent to then use with the chat model, the brains. So for example, Airtable, Google Sheets is a good example. We're storing data there. If you had a tool, the chat model could go and look at that tool, find the information, and there are multiple tools, bring something back and send it out as output. So that would be intermediate type of thing that it can do. But those are the 3 pieces: chat model, memory, and tool. But if we click on the agent here, what we see here is right now it says connected chat trigger node is where we get the prompt from. But if you remember, we wrote our own prompt. And so we are going to add that in here by clicking this and do define below. And now you'll see it says prompt user, requires specific output. We don't, but for the message itself, for the prompt, we're going to grab that prompt we wrote. I'm going to click on expression and paste it in there. We don't need it, but expression allows me to open the window so I can see it bigger. And for YouTube, that makes it a lot better if we can actually see what we're doing. So I'm going to go back over here into Gemini. There's that prompt we had. I'm going to copy that prompt. I'm going to come back over here into N8N, and in this expression, I'm going to paste the prompt. Now you'll see it did a couple different things and put it in red, which is nice because that allows us to know where we need to insert the topic that came from Bolt. I know this looks like a lot of different things going on here, but the reality is all of this, we just pasted in from what Gemini created for us. And over here on the left, remember when we did the webhook and it responded back from Bolt with the topic that we saw there? That's this information all right over here. And you'll see down here at the bottom, there's our topic, vibe coding takes over the world. So all we need to do in this situation is wherever it's highlighted in red, we just need to come in here and clear out what's in red. There's no find and replace that I know of on this, but clear out what's in red. And then you'll see when I hover over the topic, I get a little hand. I just drag that little guy right in the middle there. And now you see instead of red, I get green. And over here on the result side, you can see that that topic we put in is showing up over there. So we just need to do that for each of those. And you'll see all green, all good to go. Got our topics in the JSON over here, have everything else back over here. I can close that out. And you'll see this is where my prompt is. It has that information. So I want to test this step. And by the way, here's the input that we put in that we looked at before. Here's where the output from the agent will be. If I test it now, it's going to do nothing because I don't have the brains in there yet. So we're going to come back out here, down in the chat model. We're going to pick a chat model. Now, I'm not going to show you how to go through and set up an API today, but you will need to set up whichever one of these models or multiple models you're going to use over time. You'll see it has all of the models in here. I am going to grab 2.5 Pro. That's what we've been using the whole time anyways. So I've got that. So now it's using that. Like I said, I set up the credentials. You'll be able to see here. There's a document. So all you need to do, regardless of which tool you're going to use for the API, pick the tool, click the document. It walks you through how to get that host and also how to get the API key for that. And once I've done that, I've got my brains right here. I can do one of two things. Either click in here, click the play button on the outside, but I'm just going to come in here. I've got my brains. I've got that prompt that we wrote. And I'm just going to hit the test the step. And it's going to think for a minute because going back out to Gemini, sending all those instructions, which are fairly robust for writing a tweet, and it's going to bring the tweet back to us. And you'll see here now, this is what came in. There's our topic down here. And then this is what came out the other side. And so this is the tweet it wrote, forget rigid sprints, vibe coding is taking over. As you can read there, you know what? Not a bad tweet. And then the call to action on the back end, because we did ask for that, is do you embrace vibe? So you're trying to get people to engage with you. Is there a lot there? No, it's a tweet, but it's a pretty well-written tweet. Pretty well-written tweet. Have a little trouble with that. It's a pretty well-written tweet, and it gets you the information you need, but more importantly, it shows us how to set up the basics of building that agent. So once we've done that, we have our info coming in, our agents created the tweet, and now we just need to add back in that respond to webhook that we had earlier. No configuration needed for that. And we've got all of the pieces put together and ready to go. Make sure you hit save so that you save your application. And once we've got it all ready to go, we want to test that, of course. So we're going to hit test workflow again, just like we did before, and it's going to be sitting here listening. So then after we run the test, we can put in our topic, hit generate, and we get the results back over here. I will say that it takes it a little while sometimes to figure out exactly what you want it to look like, but this looks really nice and it generated it well. One thing that I might add in here, I can come in here and just click on this and do that. One thing I might add in just to make it fun is a copy button. So let's just say now we really are vibe coding, just adding stuff as we go. And so I'll just tell it, add a copy feature that allows us to add the tweet. I didn't give it any specifics. We'll see what it does. And so it's telling us what it's using. I always love that it tells us what it's going to use to generate the feature. So it's using the clipboard API. Don't know what it is. Don't really care what it is. But assuming it works, then I'm pretty good with that. So it says I've added a button on the top right, and there it is. So it did put a copy button there, and it copied it. And it works. So now let's say you've got your app, it's working the way you want. You don't need to vibe code anymore. You're just good to go. The last thing you need to do is over here in N8N, we need to make this active, because while it's inactive, all we can really do is come in here and test the workflow, runs once, and it's done. But we want it so that we can go in there anytime we want and type in the topic and get the tweet back that we can copy, paste it into Twitter, and go from there. To do that, we do need to go into production. And so to put it in production, that's a fancy way of saying just click the button so it says active on the top. And then back over here, that webhook, if you remember correctly, we're using the test URL. We need to get the other URL, the production URL, and copy that. And then you can come back over here in Bolt and you can do one of two things. You can just tell Bolt to replace it, or if you know where to find it, which happens to be right here, we can just come in here and tell Bolt to replace the webhook. And you'll see here in Momento, it's going to rewrite this and it's bringing in our new production webhook now. And of course, we always want to test things, even though it should just work afterwards. So let's get this back in here. We've got our tweet. We go back to N8N. This bad boy is active and running right now, so it's in production. And if everything works the way we want it to, we can do a tweet about make sure subscribe and like. We'll generate that tweet. While we're doing that, make sure you go down and subscribe and like. If you've been here this long, you must have subscribed to the channel by now if you've watched this entire video. But just in case you forgot, you're on your phone, you're driving, make sure you pull on over, click the like, click the subscribe so that you can be updated and get new videos every time they come out. I'm just babbling now because this thing is taking forever to run. And there is our production tweet. So you can just copy that and paste that into Twitter. You are good to go. As I mentioned just a minute ago, make sure you're like and subscribe, ring the notification bell if you'd like more videos about this. Also, if you'd like to see more videos we've done with some other applications using Firebase, other things, you can grab those. So there you go. We went from, if you remember correctly, back at the beginning, we wrote a prompt. Sorry, we wrote a description of what we want our prompt to say. We actually had Gemini write the prompt for us. And then we went into Bolt, where we used that to generate very quickly this application up to N8N, built out a full-fledged agent that's running off of Gemini currently, but you can switch this out to any LLM you want and then send your tweet back on over to Bolt, pop it in there, and we went crazy and added a copy button so you can copy and paste it into Twitter too. I've got some more videos coming up on how to come up with ideas, how to commercialize your apps and go from there. So it's not just playing with vibe coding, but actually building something with purpose.